Well, good morning, everybody. Here on Monday morning, I want to focus on a couple of different pieces of the atmosphere as we go forward. And one of the big ones is going to be the replacement of this pattern with a new one that features a very, very large ridge in central parts of Canada. I'll come back to that in a second. That's going to give us basically a big swing in temperatures. We got to talk about the frost that just happened. I'm going to get back into the very, very dry conditions that are plaguing parts of the country and look how long they're going to last. Take a look at that Mississippi River, too. The tropics are the biggest wild card right now. We're going to focus on that next, and then I'm going to move out into the new seasonal forecasts, which were just released late last week from both the National Multi-Model Ensemble and the European model. We're going to look all the way through winter on their precipitation outlooks. And then I have something kind of special at the very end I want to talk to you about for South America. So that's what's ahead. We come back to this map at the beginning, though. Since, the third week of August, now through the first week of September, we do have several climate reporting districts that you see here in this darkest shade that have now had the coldest such stretch of days compared to historical averages. Now, this data goes back to 1893, and I want you to understand that even though we haven't had like widespread frosts in these areas, it's the average of this long stretch that's giving you this. So yes, there were major frost events that happened historically during these same 2 to 3 weeks, but that's not what's being captured here. Now, what's being captured is the fact that we've been in this stuck, blocked pattern for about 3 weeks, and it is now completely cascading out of that into something entirely new. And during this time frame, not only was it very cold here, but we saw record heat in the west and huge wildfires in the west, which I'm going to come back to. But let's talk about the cold first. This is the NDON, which is the North Dakota Agricultural Weather Network. It's a mesonet. And on the 7th, this would have been Sunday morning, we were watching the temperatures in the Red River Valley and parts here of northern North Dakota. Some places dropped down well into the 20s. So there's that. Remember, we had the freeze watch that was out for this area Saturday into Sunday. And then you can see here some of these overnight low temperatures touching 32. So I had to do a little digging because I was curious what this meant. Sometimes a frost can come and it means nothing. And other times, depending on the crop stage, it means a lot. Soybeans are particularly vulnerable, of course, if they're still in like R5, R6. Even in R7, I read that they can still have some yield loss from this. So we should expect this very fertile part of North Dakota, Minnesota to be seeing damage when we finally get the assessment in of the extent of this frost. I also went out and looked at some of the surface observations and get you oriented here is Iowa. Early Sunday morning before sunrise, I was primarily focused on this corner of Iowa to see if we saw temperatures dipping down, below that frost level. And I saw some 35s. Now, remember, these are just the ASOS stations, which means if you see a 35, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a frost somewhere in this corner of Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota. But it would have been in low-lying areas, under the clear skies, calm winds that were in this particular region. I was also looking, if we go into this morning on the 8th, I was trying to see how far to the south the really cold air got. What about the lower Michigan, growing regions? I saw a few 32s here and here. And we know we have these frost advisories this morning that are up part of these coast. Let me show you what they look like. Here they are. So just a shade before 6 a.m. this morning Central Time, these were all the areas that had a frost advisory out. Now, the flip in this pattern is going to be wild. 50-degree swings, 60-degree swings by the end of the week for these areas that have been cool. And finally, a breakdown of the excessive heat that's in the west. So this morning, it was pretty chilly. Just take a look at the morning temperatures again, about 540 as I'm recording this. Very, very cool across this section of the Great Lakes. But the warm-up has already begun back out on the plains. We're going to begin to knock these temperatures back in the west, and the pattern's going to evolve pretty quickly. Let's take a look at some satellite data, though, just from yesterday to kind of see why we were able to get these temperatures to bottom out. A lot of clear skies here, and some of that smoke cleared out as well, which was important to the whole kind of temperature change. But the main front we've been dealing with is now off the East Coast. It sags all the way down into Florida and comes back here into parts of Texas. Now remember, while all of this was happening for this section of the country, the West has been experiencing not only very dry conditions, but incredibly hot conditions. And we've seen more wildfires show up, including this one here, the Garnet fire that's in parts of California. Now, there have been some monsoonal thunderstorms continuing to go throughout the Intermountain West, but this fire just dominated the landscape of satellite data yesterday. I want to show what it looked like here. It's a large one. I think, now when I read about it a little bit this morning, I think I saw 35,000 acres burning here. So this is a very large fire. and its smoke plume, is spreading across this part of the Sierra Nevada into Nevada today. So we're going to keep an eye on that. As we think through this pattern and why it is the way it is and what's going to be changing about it, we've got a few things to think about here. We have, first of all, this deeper low, which was helped along by a previous tropical system that became extratropical that's diving into the Gulf of Alaska. And I remember for the last several weeks, we've had just huge ridging here. But this is a part of, not the main reason, that's a catalyst to move this ridge farther inland, which is going to change the pattern, bringing in more of these southerly winds like you can see right here early this morning. In addition to that, we do have some things to talk about in the tropics, like Kiko, which is now expected to go pretty far to the north overall from Hawaii, therefore not making a direct landfall there, which is critical for Hawaii. And we're going to just attempt to assess how the pattern's going to evolve going forward, because this is it. We are now seeing much more zonal flow coming out of the North Pacific over by Japan into the Aleutian Islands. And the split is here. I'm expected to carry further inland as we go forward. And that's going to be the story. So if you watch this is the upper level height pattern, okay? As we play through the beginning of this week, there's your split, high, low. We see that by the middle of the week, a very large ridge is opening in the central part of North America, while now troughs, 1, 2, 3, have replaced what had been this blocked up pattern in the Northeast Pacific Ocean. And as we play it forward through the end of the week and into next weekend, a highly amplified north-south flowing pattern. And what can typically happen when you get these troughs coming out here is that there can be quite a bit of severe weather that will show up as a result. We're going to watch for that all week. I do know we're concerned a bit about strong to severe storms in the plains today. In fact, let me take you back and look at that real quick. If we just come over here and click on our weather maps, let's go right down. Yeah, so there it is today. We're going to be watching the panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, getting into Kansas. Same thing tomorrow, and you can still see the stronger storms here as we get out into the day on Wednesday. But I can't ignore this. This is where we stand. We now have stronger flow in the North Pacific, stronger flow in the North Atlantic. Trough north, ridge south. Trough north, ridge south. It's in between where everything's blocked up. Large ridge and large ridge. And so what we're going to see is these huge spikes in temperature in these areas, while really active weather begins to enter the west of both North America and Europe. And that seems to be the way the pattern's going to play out as we work our way through and past the middle of this month. What I'm curious about is this guy. That is kind of the upper level reflection of where the Bermuda high is. And from almost all of summer, this was over here, or even closer, it was over there. And now it has shifted, and we got to come back to see where it's going to be going in the near term. So let's finish this temperature discussion first. This is the high temperatures expected today. As we play it forward, this is now getting into Tuesday and Wednesday. Look at the cool off in the west. After just weeks of excessive heat, we now see temperatures, 10 to 12 degrees cooler than average. And in the central U.S., the temperatures are cranking. This is by Thursday into Friday. We're now widespread 90s here, according to the National Digital Forecast Database, getting into Saturday and Sunday. Very, very hot for this time of year in this region, where we just experienced such record cold temperatures. Now, beyond that, I want to show you some model differences, and this is a bit maddening. I'm going to focus in on this area. I'm going to use the GFS00 run. Now, what I want you to see as I play this out is we're now into Wednesday and here into Thursday. Now, watch the end of this week. Thursday afternoon temperatures, Missouri, Illinois, Mid-South, we're deep into the 90s. This is like 95 to 97 degrees. We then get out there to Friday. That's Friday afternoon, much bigger, more towards St. Louis, up toward Peoria, almost to Des Moines, back toward Kansas City. We're talking the epicenter of the heat being in Missouri here. Very, very hot conditions. Then you get into Saturday, same thing, but now this stretches all the way up to Sioux Falls, like to Mitchell. I mean, this is pretty far to the north. And then we get into Sunday. And the GFS is just very aggressive on bringing in all of this heat and leaving it around. This is Monday, Tuesday. Look at that. Now stretching all the way back here to this part of North Dakota. And we get out there into next Wednesday. It just keeps going. And what's a bit maddening about this is seen when you look at the model spread. So I'm going to go over to, I just clicked on local weather and I plucked out Champaign. I just want to let you know that you can do this with the map. You can use the map to kind of scroll in. In fact, you can see some of the showers and storms moving through parts of Kansas this morning. But I kind of picked on Missouri. Let's just zoom in a bit on Missouri. I don't know, let's go to Chillicothe right here. And you could just drop a pin and it'll update the forecast. Okay, so now we're going to look here. If we go to the 15-day temperatures, yeah, look at this. So I showed you the GFS forecast. It is in the dashed line here. So by Sunday, the GFS is calling for 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Chillicothe. The AI model is at 90 and the ECMWF is at 89. So just an 11-degree swing in the temperatures, even worse on Monday with the ECMWF at 85, and we've got the GFS at 90. I mean, so 15-degree swing, and you can just see the separation here. So the models are clearly not in agreement about this. They aren't agreeing about the warm-up. I mean, take a look at, take a look at the European model. I mean, this is the next 5 days, and that's day 5 through 10. And now you see the influence of that ridge being pushed to east. The cool down here as the trough sits to the south of it, the next trough sitting there. So there's all this warmth just getting raced back into this region after, in some places, a frost. And you've got there day 10 through 15. The pattern just is mild overall for most of the United States, save the western plains, where we could expect to see some wetter conditions into week 2. So, wow, I'll be honest with you, just thinking this through about where we've been and where I just showed us going here, it's exceptional to say the least. So what this does is after we think through this, we need to talk about precipitation. In fact, let me show you the last 14 days. So this was through Sunday morning. There's always a 1-day lag on this. And, whenever you're in the epicenter of a drought, it's easy to focus on, right? So I'm thinking a lot about this region because I'm that 29 right there. And we just got a brief rain last week. It was not much. Take a look at this part of the coastal Carolina region up to the mid-Atlantic, where the frost came in. Very, very dry here. Part of the Four Corner States, extreme dry, pockets of very dry conditions. I mean, right here along the Red River, and you go north of it, and they've had 3 times the normal rainfall. I mean, very, very stark contrast in this precipitation. And over the last 30 days, of course, we've had an ongoing story about the development of drought here that extends into the eastern Corn Belt, then the whole mid-Atlantic into the northeast, pockets along the U.S.-Canada border, and then the Four Corner States, which have just remained out of the monsoonal storms. As I showed you late last week, we have a major drop in our soil moisture along the Missouri River, along the northern parts of the Mississippi, the Ohio Basin. And yes, there were some decent rains that got into parts in Kentucky and Tennessee last week, but this isn't going to make it to the rivers. We can also see how dry we are along the coastal parts of Florida, northern South Carolina, the interior of Virginia, and just these pockets of very, very dry conditions. But we just think back to the main river system in the middle part of the country. It's now almost 4 feet. It's 3.5 feet below low stage. So we've had about a 43-foot swing in the depth of the Mississippi since the start of this growing season. And now we're getting concerned, are we heading back to where we were a year ago, which was 8 to 10 feet below low stage as we finish the month of September? And some of these longer range forecasts are not generous on the rainfall. Don't forget, when you go to the top here and you click on weather maps, we still have the same layout of these maps, so you can still go look at these. And I always like comparing the 7-day forecast for total precipitation from all of the models that I like to use. And in each one of them, I see a very similar feature. Can you see this? This is this very dry swath that's through just a large part of the country that has been so dry as of late. And you look at that in the same breath, go, wow, we're looking wet here, wet northwest. There's certainly a breakdown in the pattern, driving troughs and cooler weather into the west and unsettled weather with rainfall while we watch drought expand. But these models are, especially the GFS and the European model, are attempting to bring something through, penetrating into this drier spot here. And I want to show it to you kind of up close. So this is the European model. I'm going to go back to my old color scale because I haven't fully built all these new maps yet. So we're going to look here at the European model. So we're playing through, Wednesday into Thursday. So there's your stalled out front. We're expecting better rains in, parts of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the UP, and also storms coming through that very dry spot in, North Dakota. Take a look at the west. That trough is going to start to deliver rainfall here. And just watch the west as I go forward. This is Friday into Saturday and Sunday. Now, what I want to see is, do we really see this uptick in moisture in Montana? This has been a weekend model trend that can't be ignored. It's gotten so much wetter here. And then I'm also going to watch right in through here. Now, remember, we're going to be next weekend baking with heat. Is there enough moisture to make this a reality? And I'm talking about how the model is attempting next Saturday into Sunday to drive rainfall. See this? Coming into all the way down to Indianapolis. Over an inch is what's expected in Indianapolis. Now, meanwhile, take a look at how heavy the rains are up here. That would be the question. Do we get that feature coming through? Now, the GFS, this is the GFS forecast. Here it goes. Now we're through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. See it? It's also attempting to put something in here. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this concept of drought begets drought, right? I mean, and unfortunately, if you want to break a drought, even if it's September, you're going to break it with something severe. We need to watch this carefully all week long to see if the models continue to pick up on it, if it's a robust part of the solution, or if it is in fact just a phantom in the model. But one thing's for sure, the farther out I play this, I mean, this is 246 hours. That's more than 10 days out, and we continue to see just a large area of very dry conditions. Now, the GFS is attempting something here. Do you see this? This would be a tropical system. Where is it? This is just the GFS, one model, attempting to bring something up toward Florida into Georgia. And we got to be cautious here. And by the way, at the end of it, it's also got something going on over in the East Pacific. So let's maybe shift our attention for a moment here back to the tropics now that we've seen the way this precipitation pattern is playing out. First, with Kiko, the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, it's not much farther to the north. It was a Cat 2 at the last time there was an observation, but it's expected to decrease in intensity pretty quickly. There will be very large waves, though, on the northern side, northern and eastern sides of the Hawaiian Islands, so prepare for that as well. But if we look in the Atlantic, nothing right now. There's just nothing, and that's partly because of how suppressed the upper atmosphere is in the Atlantic. But I played out over the next 10 days the newest update from the European model predicting tropical cyclone development. And late this week, getting into next weekend, we're starting to see the evolution of a couple of different tropical waves leaving Africa. And the models are attempting to build this. And this fits well into our narrative we've had for a while, which was we knew that there was going to be some suppression right here on the tropical Atlantic as we worked our way toward the peak of the season around the 15th, 16th. And then we saw it open. That spot I just put a box around where we have the negative velocity potentials means that the lid's being taken off of the tropics in the Atlantic starting, about mid-month and going toward the end of the month, even the beginning of October. And that is the time frame over which we need to watch it very, very carefully. Now, some of our models are, of course, getting out that far. And if you notice, watch it play again here, the new European forecast of the low-pressure centers in their tracks are attempting at the end of the forecast time period to bring a couple of things out here. Can you see these pockets of tropical low pressure? They're initially going to fight against the upper level suppression in the atmosphere, and then they're going to probably win as we get past the middle of the month. What will be most important during that time frame is the position. I've said this now for weeks, but it's the position of the Bermuda High. Like, is it just going to live in this area? Does it slide back farther to the east? That's going to be the question, is the position of the Bermuda High. Now, that's the Atlantic side of things. In the Pacific, there is something that's starting to catch my eye here. And you can see Kiko. There's Kiko's forecast tracks. It's this feature right here. Because some of the models at the tail end of this are attempting to take what's left of this next tropical wave, which has yet to fully develop, and spin some of it up into Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. And a few of the models are kind of picking up on that, one of which is the artificial intelligence forecast model. So let's go ahead and have a look at this one. As we play it through the beginning of this week, okay, there we see a couple of the features we talked about. Better chances for rain here, stalled out front in Florida, the evolution of the trough in the west bringing in the rainfall. And then we play this out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Watch this system. Remember how we looked and saw the better rainfall that was coming into parts of North Dakota? That's part of it late this week, Thursday into Friday. But what I'm curious about, see this? Wow. These are these plain storms I mentioned, okay? This is this weekend. What I'm very curious about is, watch down here, that right there. That's the 15th, 16th. See it? Getting into the 17th. And the model, let me rephrase that, the European artificial intelligence is attempting 11 days from now to take that system out, roll it through Arizona, New Mexico, see it down there, and then have it actually turn into, look at this, into some sort of low here. Now, we are in la-la land for forecast. I mean, this is 14 days in the forecast. I'm going to watch it just because I find it to be a fascinating feature. But that is why the European model over the next 14 days has got this soaking this part of the country. And it's unique from the other models. The other models look like this for the next 2 weeks. They have the trough coming in the west, the better precipitation here, the storms this morning there, and then very dry conditions overall in this area. There will be some rain, but very dry conditions. The European ensemble does not bring a tropical system in. And then if you look at the GFS ensemble, it's got a very similar picture. See it? You can draw the same things here. And that's what's going to continue to be the concern as we go forward. And the reason why it is just weighing so heavily on these folks is this is where we've been since the beginning of August. And that area I keep circling here has been deep in drought. This extends farther into the northeast as well. And there are pockets in through here that have been dry too, and the coastal parts of North Carolina into Virginia and the mid-Atlantic. And that is the area over which we saw dry conditions. So again, this map, precipitation ranks by climate district going back to August 1. Now, big concern, you know what I'm going to talk about, it's the Bermuda High. The GFS model just leaves it out pretty far to the east, over toward the Azores. It stays out there. So what happens? You see the flow doing this? It's not doing that. So this is going to be starved for moisture. There's still southerly flow, but it's sourcing some of this from Mexico, central Texas, not the Gulf or the Caribbean. And that's all because the Bermuda High's got its circulation here. So even though there's southerly flow, we are not tapping into true tropical sources of moisture. So I'm out now to the 15th, 16th, 17th. Hey, here's the 6Z GFS pulling in that tropical system. See it right there? But who knows? This could be a phantom storm in the models. Where is that Bermuda High going to be as we go forward? So I'll tell you what the CPC thinks. Their forecast, which they released on Friday for this last week of September, first week of October, is to just leave it out of the picture. There's a stalled out front here. That's why it's wetter. There is better chances of flow into the northwest. That's why it's wetter. They've got a bit of more monsoonal flow here. But overall, they've got this region in the center part of the country with drier risks, especially right here in Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, back toward Missouri. And the other models are supportive of that. This is the latest update from the GFS Extended. In fact, they make it a bit more widespread where that dryness is going to be. Still wetter in this region, but dryness just expanding from Texas all the way to Quebec in this particular case. Let's go look at another model. That's the GFS. How about the European? Now, we can see the European is carrying what it's expected to see in week 2. Really, not just week 2, the next 10 days or so, with the wetter conditions here. But it is very dry in this region, meaning that Mississippi likely will continue to drop in its levels. And I'll show you one more. This is the CMC Extended. It is really more aggressive on the rainfall coming into this area, but still dry in this region over toward the Mid-Atlantic and the coastal Carolinas as well. Just another model to use. I usually don't use the CMC weeklies. I tend to stick more with the European weeklies. Historically, they've been the most accurate. This particular fall, I'm just going to take you back to it. This is the one I've been most impressed with, the GFS Extended. Now, none of them are great, but I think it's giving us a pretty solid picture. Now, of course, if anything comes through and wipes this out and breaks it down, we will talk about it, but I wanted you to see that. All right, big ideas going forward, because I got this long range I want to get into. The La Niña, the evolution of this La Niña here with the warm North Pacific. Now, I'm just going to make a case for something, all right? What do we typically get in winter when we have a La Niña going? We tend to get a more variable jet. It tends to come in high through Alaska, dive, and then exit like this. Therefore, you tend to not have a subtropical component of the jet, meaning that we tend to be drier south, cooler, wetter north. That's La Niña to the T. Given how warm this is, I'm trying to lend some ideas to this longer range. If this stays so warm into winter, there is a large, there is an increased risk of a northward displaced jet and a more amplified dive into the central U.S., making this particular region very active for, low pressure development going forward. This would be not good for the West in their precipitation. Now, not all models are buying into that. I'm just telling you, watch the Gulf of Alaska temperatures. They could be critical at displacing the jet stream farther to the north, which would impact precipitation patterns in the West. Okay, that's it. But I'll tell you, the La Niña is the bigger factor in every long-range model. Okay, so the models bite into the La Niña. And sure enough, we do have strong trade winds right now. Now, we typically have trade winds that look like this, but these are a bit stronger in their extent and how far they're pushing off to the west. So the newest El Nino forecast, Niño 3.4 forecast, that's just a spot in the Pacific Ocean for ocean temperatures, well, the newest run trended down. As I said down here, the latest ECMWF is more aggressive. It's trying to bring this more fully into this region with consistent ocean temperatures below that threshold through November, December, January, maybe a little bit into February. And so when the model gets that, it does this. What it tends to do with La Niñas is drier fall here, wetter fall, in the northwest. And then we go forward November, December, January. And then look at this, December, January, February. You see it? Jet comes in, jet goes out. There's that active region. The question is this. Now, every La Niña, when all stacked up, tend to give us wetter northwest. Tends to be great for snow, Cascades, northern Rockies. Even the central Rockies tend to do okay. But I'm worried about how warm the water is out here, and maybe this is too aggressive. What we tend to get when there's a La Niña is a dry look like that. Let me rephrase that. A drier look. December, January, February. Let's keep going. This is January, February, March. To be honest with you, the model's going after a pretty epic winter if you're in the Mid-South, Ohio Valley, Mississippi Valley, Great Lakes. But it's just a model run. That's all we have to take it. We have others to support this. This is the newest October, November, December outlook from the NMME. So again, you can kind of see how it's got this drier fall look here, wetter in this region. Let's get out there farther than that. That's November, December, January. This is December, January, February. So again, it's got this look and then drier south of that line. But I'm most concerned about this pattern for the west, to be honest with you, only because of how warm the water is in the northeast Pacific. And then finally, how about January, February, March? Models are pretty consistent with one another right now. So you needed to see it, and now we just need to finish this up with a discussion on South America. How about a play of the forecast rainfall? The European model is notorious for doing what you're about to see here. I took it out a week. Are we expecting heavy rains in this area? Yes. Is it drier in through here? Yes. But the European model, this time of year, just loves to toss in rain. And what it's doing out into week 2 is bringing in the rain into this area quite a bit. I mean, if they were able to get 3 to 4 inches of rainfall in here, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain, that's going to be a pretty aggressive start to the planting. Still drier the farther east you go, but that's the new European forecast. Now, what I want to show you is this. The ensemble. Dry for the next week. See this? Wetter here, drier there. Then you go out to day 10. Now watch. Look at week 2. The model's like, oh, yeah. Bring it all of this wet. This is a European model thing it seems to have. Now, let me show you this, because the GFS has the opposite problem. There's week 1, GFS model. This is GFS ensemble. And there's week 2. See how dry it is? It is as dry as the European is wet. So long story short, you look at a 2-week forecast from the GFS, and it's like, nope, no early monsoon. You go back to the European and say, show me a 2-week forecast. It's like, a little drier here, but hey, rains. And I'm just going to tell you, what do you trust? Neither. We have to watch it day by day. Watch the evolution of the winds. And right now the winds, okay, the high is down here. That's why it's so wet in this area. See how it's all coming together there? But you're drawing in drier air from this region. That's why we're not seeing a monsoon start now. You've got to move this high north, tap into some of this moisture, and get it to curl around before the monsoon is fully on. And most models are not letting that happen right away, like the GFS extended. This is the forecast from September 12 to October 12. See how dry it is? I'm sure you can guess what the European model is going to look like. Let's go have a look. Same time period, European model, very wet. It's a little drier in southern Brazil, just a little drier. And that model difference is going to be something that maybe the trade's going to pick up on. Maybe that's going to be a focus as we go forward out of U.S. weather issues down to South America. But I'll be watching planting progress and reporting on that. And we're also going to remember this, and this is what I told you about at the beginning. If you come down here, let's just look at the map area that I'm looking at. It's right here. Part of the Cerrado, getting up Mato Grosso, this region. We have seen since 1980 or so that there's been a pretty consistent downward trend in total precipitation in the month of October. I've talked to the Brazilians. They feel it as well, which means their typical October monsoonal rains seem to be coming later. They tend to be more November. And what's interesting about this is it's to the tune of about 2 inches. And the 2 inches is what they're waiting on. They're waiting on a good 2-inch rainfall. So the question is this year going to be a year where we pop back up? If you go with the European model, yep. If you go with the GFS, no. It's going to be way down here. So this will be critical to watch as we go forward, but understand the longer-term trend is that the front end of the Brazilian monsoon has been getting drier with time. So that is where I'm going to leave you today. Thank you for hanging on to the bitter end. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.